I think I'm going to take over and share my screen. Well, welcome everyone. Doing things a little bit differently, doing things now as webinars since we can't meet in person anymore. So I think everyone's getting used to doing these webinars. Just a little bit about myself. My name is Carl Commons. I'm with INIT, Innovations in Transportation, and I lead the sales team as well as a lot of the product innovation that takes place within the company. INIT supplies software, hardware, integration services all around the world, not just here in North America. And we assist travel agents, transit agencies with solutions to more effectively and efficiently collect fares, manage their fleets, provide service to the end customer. One thing that makes us unique, I would say, is that over these 30 years working with transit agencies, it's really taught us how to be open and flexible. No two solutions are the same. We work with a lot of different partners. We try to provide transit agencies really with the best solution, for their needs, not just an INIT solution. And like everyone else, we're adapting to the coronavirus. We're trying to meet new needs in order to help transit agencies socially distance, and that might be we're helping them with things like rear door boarding. How do you collect fares when you have rear door boarding when everyone's used to going through the front door and paying? Or how to provide real-time passenger information that shows the current load on the buses, so passengers know, am I getting on a bus that's getting close to 50% full, and maybe we can't maintain the social distance, or should I wait for the next one and jump on this bus? So that's really just enough about me. What I'd like to do now is go ahead and pass it to the presenters. And can you actually, I realize I can see this, my screen changed. Can you actually see the slides? Somebody tell me, give me a thumbs up if you can see the slide.
I can't see. No.
I realize it took over. Here we go. Try this. How was that? Can you see it now? Okay, yeah. Good. I realized it took over my screen, but then I had both going in the same place. Might not be on both. So that's okay. You don't need to look at my picture. We have a great group of panelists today. I'm really looking forward to hearing about their successes and even the failures, although we don't really call this failures, we just call them lessons learned. I think we're all going to learn more about what we can do, how the transit agencies are reacting, and how we can all do better. First up, I'm just going to give a brief overview and then let them introduce themselves. But I'm happy to have Beth on. Beth is the manager of customer service at C-TRAN. Beth is, I'm happy to have her on, not just because she's an INIT customer, but also because she has a lot of, I think, interesting experiences to share with the implementation and operation of their regional fare collection system. We also have Allan Foster. Allan is the director of Farecard operations at the Toronto Transit Commission. And as a top 10 transit agency, Allan and the TTC, they can really share a lot of their unique challenges. But I think there's also a lot of similarities. I think no matter how big the transit agency is, we're all dealing with the same problems. Next we have Endya Freeman. She's the revenue manager with Jacksonville Transportation Authority. And the JTA is known for a lot of innovations. I was just there a couple years ago for an APTA event. I found it really interesting the things they're doing. And Endya will share some of the innovations and especially some of the operational changes they've done and where they've adapted. I think everyone will find interesting. And I'm kind of curious. You just mentioned in this pre-call, you know, we were getting set for this call about how they might go back into lockdown and you know, any changes that might come is now that Florida is a hotspot. And then finally, we have Michelle. Michelle Whitney is the Revenue Operations Supervisor at the Regional Transportation Commission of Southern Nevada, or RTC. I was lucky enough to present with Michelle about a year ago when we were still doing these in person. She was a panelist and I was a moderator on that panel as well. I know from that and other conversations, RTC has a lot of interesting things. They think outside the business. You know, Las Vegas is a unique city and do a lot of outside the box creative solutions. So with that, I'm going to start with Beth and let her introduce herself and her agency. Thanks, Beth.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming to this. I think it's a really good topic that we're doing. My name, as you know, is Beth Cox. I've worked for C-TRAN for a little over 30 years. In fact, August will be my 31st. C-TRAN provides service in Vancouver, Washington. That's Washington, not Canada. And we provide service to all of Clark County, and our average ridership is approximately 6.3 million a year in a non-COVID environment. We provide fixed route, dial-a-ride service, paratransit complimentary service, and commuter express service into downtown Portland. And like many companies, you know, we in the early stages of COVID, we scrambled and we did our best in the environment that we had, and we immediately went to rear door boarding. We stopped enforcing fares. We didn't stop taking fares, we stopped enforcing fares. I think that's a distinction I need to make there right off the bat. However, we had started reinforcing fares on June 14th and started front door boarding at that time. We use an electronic fare payment system. We encourage people to still use that if they could. Once people found out we weren't enforcing fares, most people stopped paying. We still saw some money coming in through our TVMs, but we did our best. We wanted to keep our drivers safe and our customers safe. And that was our main goal during COVID. And now that we're collecting fares, I think we're gonna see an uptick in our eFare system usage over top what we had before, which was actually pretty good.
Okay, thank you, Beth. And we'll go on to next is Allan.
Hi, good morning. I'm Allan Foster from the Toronto Transit Commission. We are, as most everyone knows, one of the largest transit properties in North America, and certainly the largest within Canada. My job specifically is the head of Farecard operations at the TTC. I've been with the program from inception, so that's prior to the contract award and throughout the entire rollout. And currently, at this point, we have the equipment and the system installed, and we're continuing to build on functionality. And we're starting to turn our mind to sort of operationalizing a lot of the support processes that are required to support this system. And we're also starting to think about the planning and the design work to enable open payments that'll allow customers to use their debit, credit card, and any other NFC-enabled device to pay for the transit fare. Presto is a large payment system that's provided to 11 transit agencies throughout the province, TTC being the largest of those agencies. Fortunately for us, because of the configuration and the equipment that we have installed, we were able to actually continue to collect fares throughout the entire pandemic, albeit during the first initial weeks, we curtailed enforcement and we assigned our enforcement staff to provide additional customer assistance. And we've started to rethink now, restarting those enforcement activities, but we were able to collect fares from the rear doors during that period. and we started to do front door collection in the previous week. So we haven't fared that bad. The biggest change for us has actually been just the obvious drop in ridership, which I think has impacted most transit agencies. Our low point was 20% of pre-COVID ridership, and we're slowly climbing back now. Yes, last week's numbers, we were just above the 40% mark, and we're hoping to get to the 60 or the 70% before the Labor Day. And so things look positive for us. We're not quite sure what that final ridership is going to be once things get back to the new normal, but we're encouraged that at least things seem to be improving. In terms of my own experience here, I've done a lot of work now in payments, life safety communications, digital transformation, and electrical infrastructure. And that's really helped me to help to roll out the system. And our partnership with Metrolinx and the province continues to evolve. And as I said, we're looking forward to building out the open payments capability in the next few years. Thanks, Carl.
Great, thank you, Allan. And we have up next, Endya.
Hi. Good morning or afternoon, depending on which coast you're on. My name is Endya Freeman, and my bio is on the screen, so I'm just going to jump into a little bit about JTA. Quick facts, we cover 884 square miles. Our ridership is about 11.5 million pre-COVID a year. We have about 316 vehicles, about 200 are part of our fixed route, about 100 are for our paratransit service. And we do have a ferry service, so we do have a ferry as part of our vehicle listing. We have 42 routes. We have a Skyway system that is fare-free, which covers 2.5 miles, has 8 stations. Our annual operating budget is $143 million. We have about 800 staff. A little bit more about our fare payment system. We have an Odyssey. We have the GenFare product, which is the Odyssey Fare Box. Passport is our mobile app provider. We also have the Access IS Validator on all of our fixed route buses. We have 22 TVMs, and we just recently opened up a new JRTC, more of our new hub, which houses our offices and our new bus hub. So that was in the middle of this crisis, which has been an exciting thing for us. So that's a little bit about JTA. In terms of COVID, we were one of the few agencies that continued to collect fares the same way, because we did have barriers put up for our operators more than a year ago. So we were able to continue to collect fares like we normally do. We did see about a 50% drop in our revenue and ridership. And we, I guess, we've been looking at how this impacts our future plans based on some of the numbers we've been looking at for March, April, and May.
Hey, thank you, Endya. And last but not least, we have Michelle.
Hi, good morning, everybody, or afternoon, as Endya said. I know it's morning where I'm at. So similar to what Endya did, my background's up on the screen. I've been with the RTC going on about 13 years now. And, the RTC is very, very unique. We are the transit provider for Southern Nevada, which includes Las Vegas. We are also the MPO, so the Metropolitan Planning Organization. So we work with all the local jurisdictions to plan and fund all of the roadways here in Southern Nevada. Additionally, we are also the traffic manager. So all of our freeway arterial systems, traffic management, signal timing, everything for the entire region. So it makes us very unique. We're the only transit agency in the U.S. that's set up that way, where we house all those functions. Specifically about our transit system, though, we have 39 transit routes. We have a little over 400 vehicles, about 404 vehicles. And pre-COVID, our ridership was, we were 64.4 million passenger trips annually. So we transport a lot of people in this area in Southern Nevada. Obviously, COVID has affected all of us. Las Vegas is no exception. We were hit very, very hard. I'm sure you all are aware that our strip was shut down. First time ever that I can remember where the casinos and the resorts and everything was dark. So it's funny because that actually brought some people into Vegas because they wanted to see it. So our ridership was impacted, obviously. With the COVID virus, we moved to rear door boarding. And like most transit agencies, we don't have a fare box at the rear door. So we were not enforcing fares. People, if they had fare, then they could certainly board and have their mobile pass or have their pass in hand. We weren't accepting cash and we were not enforcing fares. And so we just recently moved into what we're calling a phase 2 scenario, where we are now front door boarding. That took place June 6th, so just a few weeks ago. We were able to start collecting fares again. While we're not at pre-COVID measures or even ridership or revenue, we have regained close to half of our revenue back and half of our ridership. So it's not bad. We're kind of taking that as a win. I don't know how many transit agencies. It'll be interesting to hear how many are actually starting to regain some ridership back. I think it's really tough right now. I will tell you also that we are moving forward with a new fare payment system procurement. We're going to be issuing an RFP before the end of the year, looking at moving towards a reloadable card, smart card, tap card, open payment system. We really want to move into taking less cash. We are very cash heavy here in Vegas. Close to 70% of our revenue is cash. And so we really are looking forward to moving that bar the other direction. And so our new fare system will be able to support that measure and support those initiatives in the direction that we want to go. So we're looking forward to moving that way soon.
All right, thank you, Michelle. Thank you, everyone, for the introductions in the background. Just to learn a little bit more about your transit agencies and the current situations. What we're going to do now is go into a question and answer period. I have a series of questions that I'm going to pose to the panelists to get things started. If, for the listeners and the audience out there, if you want to start thinking of questions and putting those into chat, feel free. I'll do my best to sort through them, maybe group them so we can get through as many as possible. But in the meantime, I'm just going to kick things off with a question. I'm going to take down the slides so you can see everybody's face. But just for the first question here, I'm going to direct this to Allan to at least start. But with the economy reopening and the demand increasing, how will this impact the way you collect fares?
Yes, thank you.
TTTC perspective.
TTTC, absolutely. Yeah, so Presto, the Presto payment features have been available to all of our customers since 2018. In fact, just prior to COVID, we were at about 90% in terms of overall adoption of customers using Presto. With the COVID pandemic, the largest change for us was that we were, for a short time during the initial weeks of the pandemic, we stopped collecting fares at the front doors, obviously to create a better and a safer space for our operating staff. And so customers would only be able to board our vehicles through the rear entrance doors. And at those doors, we did not have a fare box to collect any cash, or we still have tokens as well, in addition to Presto payments. So we were encouraging customers during that period to continue to pay their fare using the Presto card. Now that we've resumed service, or regular service in terms of the product that we're providing for customers, and customers can now board to the front doors, we've restarted collecting cash and collecting tokens. So the largest change for us was just our abilities and the back-end processes that we have in terms of processing cash and token payments. We had to stand down those operations for some weeks. Those staff were not let go. They were redeployed to other areas of the organization to help. We've now repositioned them back into their original positions, and we've restarted the process for collecting and sorting through the cash and token payments that we receive. So for us, there wasn't a large difference in terms of how we support fare collection at the TTC. It was mainly just temporarily shutting down some processes and now restarting them back up again. Coincidentally, with the reduction in ridership, and as I mentioned earlier, there was a point where we had lost close to 80% of our pre-COVID ridership. We're down into the very low 20% range. We actually used that time to implement several software enhancements that we had had on hold in terms of patching the fare payment system. So as I said, we took advantage of that period with relatively low ridership to actually make things a little bit better for customers so that when they do return, part of the reason they're returning is that they're getting a better customer experience in terms of the fare payment system that we're providing. But as I said, the biggest change for us was just the cash and token payments, and now those have resumed. So that part of our business hasn't really been impacted. For us now is just watching the ridership increases and speculation around where we're going to top out with the new environment and the new decisions that businesses are making and customers themselves in terms of how they use transit in the future.
Okay, that's great. Thanks for the insight. Beth, would you like to add something about from a more mid-sized agency's perspective?
Sure. We use an electronic fare payment system that we partnered with Portland TriMet and the Portland Streetcar. It's called the Hop Fast Pass system. That has helped tremendously. However, like every other transit agency, when we went to rear door boarding, we don't have a fare box or the validator or the reader at the rear door. We resumed, surprisingly, I have to say that our commuter service and our paratransit service, we lost ridership. What I thought was surprising is the paratransit customers continued to pay, even though we weren't enforcing fare on either system. Now that we've moved forward to collecting fares, before we did that, our maintenance department designed and implemented some barriers around the drivers. So when we started to implement fares, the driver doesn't have any contact or physical contact with the passenger. So now we're seeing an uptick in the amount of fares we're collecting. We're also seeing an increase of number of people who are using the Hop Fast Pass system. What's really beneficial about this system is it not only allows you to load a card with like preloaded cards, but you can do it at any of the retailers, a lot of retailers around Vancouver and Portland. I think there's thousands literally. And so somebody can go there and load it with cash. It doesn't necessarily have to be somebody that uses a card. So we're seeing a little bit more uptick in that usage, which is really great because that was our intention from the very beginning, is to have people move into that more electronic over cash. We will have, obviously some unbanked and underbanked people that aren't able to do that, so they will continue to pay cash.
That's great. Great, thank you. Just to kind of keep things moving, I think those are two good perspectives on how we're dealing with fare collection. But I kind of move on to another questions that many agencies are planning to transition to an account-based smart card systems, but can't completely eliminate cash. And in a post-COVID world, does that make cash obsolete? And I'm going to start with Endya. And Endya, if you want to take your time, that'd be great, because I'm going to switch audio while you're talking, so don't be too sad.
Okay. I'm going to be expressive here. No. Cash will not be obsolete, not in my lifetime or anyone else's. Well, I shouldn't say anyone else's, but prior to COVID, our fare collection for JTA was about 30% credit card, 60% cash, and 10% split other ways. And that's just all out of collection. When we just look at fare box collections, about 40% to 38% straight cash. Now, we're a mid-sized agency, and that's just a concern for us. And like I said earlier, we were fortunate enough to continue to collect fares during this time. So my fare revenue analyst, Jimmy Lee, took a look at our revenue based on 1, 3, 7, and 31-day passes, the typical way we look at revenue, you know, like 1 day, 3 days, 31 days, and we didn't see much of a change there. We decided to also look at our revenue based on touch points. So we took a look at our revenue based on who went to a ticket window during COVID, who went to a TVM, who put cash directly in on a bus, and who used their mobile app. And then we assigned touch points. So cash is, Farebox is a 1 touch point. The TVM is a 2 touch point because I have to go to the TVM, then the bus. The mobile app, of course, is a 1 touch point. You get the point. You get the scenario. What we discovered is during the peak of the COVID crisis, we did see a shift, a significant shift. Cash and mobile app, we saw the greatest increase. And those are 1 touch points. So we're noticing that when customers did not have these other options, they easily went to cash or mobile app. So for us, someone may challenge and say, well, what about your past partners? And we have Winn-Dixie's and Walgreens, so customers could still go to those stores during the crisis. So they were still making sales, but they did not see an increase. So we feel like the 1 touch points, like I said, our Farebox and our mobile app, and our future development of products for our customers, we're going to focus on 1 touch point option. In terms of our cash-based customers, one of the things we want to really look at is we're looking for digital or virtual pass options that cater to underbanked or unbanked customers, because those are the 2 areas where we saw the change. Mobile and cash saw the biggest increase during the crisis. So cash is not going away. We just need to find ways to digitalize cash to our pass options for our customers.
All right, great. Thank you. And can everybody hear me a little better now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Would be the day that my microphone doesn't want to work. So, yeah, thank you very much for that. And if we could kind of just transition over, maybe Michelle, you could give your perspective on what you think is going to happen with cash.
Yeah, so I have to echo what Endya said. I mean, cash is king. This is Vegas. Everybody has cash, right? And they're moving cash all day long. Not to mention the fact that here in Vegas, in multiple surveys that we've done, we've seen that 60% of our customers are either unbanked or underbanked. So we have just a huge influx of not only transient people coming into Vegas, but cash is just everywhere. And so a lot of our customers prefer to use that. So we've had to really think outside the box on how can we let those cash paying customers still use cash, but take advantage of some of our technology. So we have been really pushing our mobile app. We have our ridership mobile app, and especially, you know, with the COVID pandemic, people are not really wanting to have as many touch points to what Endya said, so they're really wanting to just have something in hand, show it, and move on. And so a lot of customers have gravitated to our mobile app. We're about 15% adoption rate on our mobile app, which is great for us. Even once we started collecting fares again, everybody came back to the mobile app. We are also moving with a new initiative with our mobile app provider, Masabi. In September, we are going to be launching a cash to mobile. So customers will be able to go into our vendor locations that we have, an Albertsons grocery store, a Walgreens, and give cash to that cashier and load those funds onto their mobile app account. And then from there, they can pick whichever pass they would like to buy and then travel through our system. So we're not necessarily forcing everybody to have a credit card to use our mobile app, and it'll hopefully, our plan is that it will reduce that cash at our fare box. We do know that 80% of our customers have a smartphone, and 90%, in a recent survey, 90% of our cash-paying customers would switch to a mobile device. So we know just from even looking at surveys and statistics that our customers will welcome the idea. So while I don't see cash ever truly going away, especially in our tourism and on the Strip where there's a lot of tourists coming to town, I do think that if you offer the technology to have cash acceptance in other areas and kind of shift that burden of the cash acceptance elsewhere, I think that's where you can realize the benefits of reducing the cash in your system.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. Just as a follow-up, the next question we have on here, and I think you already touched on this, are there any ideas about helping your customers, your patrons that don't already have an existing smartphone or like a contactless credit card? Because that's another media type that is gaining popularity and acceptance.
Well, I'll speak to that. One of the things we learned is not necessarily the underbanked or unbanked not having a cell phone, because like Beth said, Whitney, Michelle said they do have the cell phones. One of the things we learned with our app was initially we offered free passes to customers to even try it, and they felt uncomfortable with downloading an app of that size to their phone. So it's more than just having the phone. It's number one, understanding how much memory or data it takes up on their phone. And then there's also the need for having a very simple, basic app. I think our customers are willing to digitize their cash to a product, but we need to make sure it is at the customer level. I think in the tourist area where you have folks coming in from all over the world, you can probably have a more sophisticated app that includes a lot of wayfinding and information. But some of the areas where it's more transit-dependent riders, you want to find a product that is easy to use, payment-based, and just simply, how do I pay and go? But it depends on your agency. If you're in a tourist area, you need a more robust item. If you're in, say, Jacksonville, Florida, maybe not so much.
I agree, Endya. I think, I'm sorry.
I think go ahead, Beth.
Okay. I think that it's kind of, I liken it to, marketing. You want to get a whole bunch of different things out there for everybody to read in every format that you can. And I think that's important in an eFare system as well. As Endya was saying, in our city, for instance, we have a lot of people that are underbanked, and they do have cell phones, but they don't necessarily have internet service that goes with those cell phones. So in the system we're using, it was really important to give something to everybody. So we have the option of doing the mobile app payment, and we also have an option of buying a card that they can load. And there's also another option of what we call limited use tickets that are kind of flimsy, and they're just one single payment that somebody can possibly buy, and they can pay cash for that at one of our sales offices. So I think that you're never going to get rid of people that are paying cash. And this is what I always say. My team counts the fare box money, and when we're still counting pennies in the fare box, you know that people are going to continue to pay cash.
I agree.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, Beth, because we deposit almost 2 full bags of pennies, so $50 worth of pennies every day. It's ridiculous. That pennies are so out there. But, to speak about those unbanked customers, or even those customers that don't have a smartphone, I think it's important that we still do focus on providing a solution for them. And so even though that percentage for us is small, I think having a reloadable card or something of that nature, moving towards that account-based system, right, where the customers have an account, they load funds, and then it's up to the customer to select what token they're going to use to ride through the system. Is it their mobile phone? Is it their smart card, their tap card, or anything of that nature that makes it simple and easy and puts the choice in the customer's hand? I think that's what we need to allow and have available for customers, and that's certainly the direction that we're moving towards, is having those reloadable cards as an extra layer to support those customers that just don't have the ability to have a smartphone or have credit card systems.
That's a good point, Michelle. Options, options, options.
Yes.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that, in our demographic, we do also have the smartphone capability, and we also have the limited use ticket, which is intended for single rides and really just for day usage. One of the primary targets for that product are those customers that, through accessibility, that we've got a number of homeless folks in our city. They just don't have access to a credit card or a smartphone. And so we have a robust third-party network that sells these limited use products. We also do extensive outreach with various social agencies to be able to distribute this product to that customer segment. And the last thing I would add, we've also installed vending machines throughout our ecosystem that provide sort of a self-serve portal for customers to be able to reload the reloadable card, but also to purchase the limited use media product, which is again intended for those customers that just for various reasons, they can't manage a product that lends itself to being reloaded, and they certainly don't have access to a smartphone just because of their economic or other status or other constraints that they may have. So by doing that, we sort of open up the product to be able to service that segment as well.
That's great. I had a question come in. Actually, somebody raised their hand, and I missed the message, but I think it might have been Paul Merrigan who also typed in a question. If you'd like, I can allow you to speak, and you can ask your question live to the panel. So I'm going to do that really quick. Paul. Okay. Paul, you should be able to speak now if you'd like to ask your question of the audience, if we didn't already answer it. Okay, maybe it didn't work.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. Hey, there you go. Go ahead,
Sorry,
Paul.
You caught me in the hop. I just had to switch mics.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, my question was just about, and you already answered some of it in your earlier answers. Just what incentives, if any, are you offering to low-income riders, post-COVID or during COVID, that, towards moving them towards eFares, because, low-income riders are predominantly, I guess, using cash. So are there any incentives that you're using, and does that involve any new media or new fares that may allow them to use smart cards or mobile phones more easily and incentivize them to do that? Thank you.
I can answer some of that, I think. C-TRAN and Portland, I lost my train of thought, sorry about that. So we provided free hop cards to everybody. And that was when we first initiated the system, implemented the system back in 2017. Also built within the system are capping options for people, and it actually allows most people to ride for a lesser fare than they would if they were paying cash. So I think that that's been a big incentive for people to move towards using the electronic fare over cash, is the fact that we give them a free card, their initial card free, and then the capping on the system is a big incentive for people.
And Paul, here in Vegas, with our new fare system that we are looking to procure, we have also at the same time built out a fare working group with key stakeholders from the community. The intent there is for us to look at our fare structure that we currently have and see ways where we can incentivize that off-board fare collection and provide potentially a low income fare. So that's something we're looking at. We are also looking at including fare capping as part of a new fare structure through that system. Certainly incentivizing off-board fare collection is a benefit. Anything, maybe you lower your fare, even if it's just a nickel. The customer will gravitate toward that lower fare, or if there's any kind of reward in using the mobile app or using a tap card rather than putting cash in the fare box. So we've seen where that works in other transit agencies, and our data from our customer survey says that they would definitely participate if there was an incentive, no matter, if it's 5 cents or even just a couple of pennies. So we have seen where there is a benefit there, and that's something that we are looking at building out and changing our fares to accommodate that.
And I'll just add to that, in Toronto, we've got a number of programs geared toward low-income recipients. In fact, most citizens within the city that qualify to receive social assistance, they actually get a product that offers a discount both on the monthly pass and also on the eFare payments. It's a approximately 30% reduction on the normal fare, and that's provided for those concession groups. Specifically related to COVID, we are also looking at the option of providing some type of a refund for those customers that had purchased a pass product and did not fully utilize the fast product as a result of COVID. So we're looking at options to be able to replenish or return some of that value back to the customers, just to help them out through this time as well.
Great. And there's actually another person that raised their hand, Edward McCauley. I'm going to go ahead, if you want to prepare yourself, I'm going to go ahead and allow you to talk as well if you still have a question that needs to be answered. That should work if you're off mute.
Can you hear me? Is that me talking?
That's great.
You got me. Okay, excellent. Yeah, no, I'm primarily in maintenance. I actually don't do fare collection, but from my experience, both with the Boston system and the LA system, both relatively big systems, I find that regular commuters don't have a problem paying with fare cards and using any electronic means. It's the tourists that seem to be the ones that don't like to commit. The big thing out here in LA, we were dealing with crowd control for like Rams games for football. And I noticed that even people who lived in LA who were coming to the Rams games didn't even want to put enough fare for a return trip on their fare cards. They would rather pay cash, stand in line, pay cash to pay their fare to get to the game, and then willing to stand in line a second time to go home. Where LA Metro was encouraging these people, hey, at least make one time standing in line. Wouldn't even do that. So like you talk about cash, I don't think cash will ever completely go away, but the fare cards out here work pretty well. So, just my 2 cents.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Edward. I have. Yeah, go for it.
I do like his comment about customers committing, and someone putting an app on their phone maybe a couple of years ago seemed like a really neat thing, but now the millennials and some of the younger generation folks tend to want to put an app on and take it right back off. Where we always had the idea that they would put our transit app on their phone and it would stay there, it would be this great, wonderful thing. So we have to really rethink what our new customer payment preference would be. And I know we were focused on apps, but there may be another option for folks who do not want to commit even to an app, if that makes sense. So he talked about committing and using cash and willing to stand in the line, but there is a new wave of folks not willing to commit to an app, if that makes sense. So I agree with him.
Yeah, and you know what, Edward, it's funny because, you know, our tourist market is huge here in Vegas, and we have had customers actually complain and say, I don't want to download another app when I'm there for 3 days. And you know, it doesn't make sense for them to do that. And we totally understand. To try and solve some of that or to give another option, we actually partnered with Transit app and Uber. So now if you have Uber on your phone and you're here in Vegas, you can buy our transit passes through Uber. And the same, you can buy them also on the Transit app. And actually the tourist sales on those 2 apps have done better than on our ridership app. So we know that it's working. So I think, you know, building those partnerships in other tourist markets and other avenues, I think that also helps to try and fill that void for your tourists.
And that goes into the mobility as a service thing. And I think in tourist areas, that is ideal for, you know, Orlando, Vegas, New York, those bigger cities, even Boston. So.
Actually, I have a question I'm going to pose to the panelists, and actually, specifically, Allan, I know in Canada, adoption of contactless payments with a credit card, it's much higher. In the U.S., credit card companies have been really slow to put out contactless credit cards. So are you seeing that? Are people moving away from cash and using contactless credit cards? You know, what's the adoption rate there in Toronto for that?
So in terms of contactless credit card, contactless payments in its entirety within Canada is, I believe the last number I looked at was in the high 80% range. So there's a very large number of our citizens that actually use contactless payments. In fact, the system that we have in place today for the electronic fare payment doesn't require the customer to actually contact the actual payment device to make a payment. The only contact points is typically when you're loading value at a vending machine. But there are other choices that customer has to be able to load value that doesn't require the customer to actually come in contact with any surface. We do, however, recognize that even with those high adoption rates, there is going to be a residual number of our customers that continue to want to use other forms of payment, either because of their economic status. There's various reasons, various social reasons why they are not bank customers. They don't have access to a phone and or a credit card for that matter. And that is why we've designed what we call the Presto Tickets, which is a limited use media product that's designed to be able to be accessible via social networks, vending machines, and the third-party network that we have throughout the city, so that at any point, whether you are a traveler, a visitor.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
Oh, Allan just froze.
Uh-oh.
Lost. Okay, well, we'll let him come back to that. Everybody remember where he left off. I'm going to ask probably the last pre-made question here, and I think I'll kick it over to Beth as the first person. But what would you advise for small urban agency going from cash to a new fare collection technology, and you know, in this new environment? So for the more small to medium size.
Right. I have a lot of advice here, because I think that it's important that if you're interested, you start now and you get the right people involved in the conversation at your company. And I can't stress that enough. It may not be the first person that you're thinking of right off the top of your head. It may be somebody that has kind of risen a little bit and knows a lot about fares. You need to have everybody involved in that conversation you can to talk about the cash versus the no cash and what type of fare instruments you're going to use. Talk about it and write it down, get it down on paper, and then look for that company that's going to best suit your needs for what you're looking for. Start now, because it's not a fast process. We built ours from the ground up, and it took us about 5 years. But if you're looking for something that's more off the shelf, I quote that because I don't know if that's necessarily a thing. But you know, start now, because it's going to be at least a couple-year process, and have all your ducks in a row before you start, so that you know what you're asking the company to do, what you want your fare to do on your bus, and how you want to see that on the back end. And you know, it's just extremely important to get those people involved so that you get all of the questions answered before you start.
Yeah, great, thanks. Yeah, I think it's all about key is the prep work, right?
It is definitely about the prep work, yes.
Yeah, and just Endya, would you like to add some?
Yeah, I have something. I have 4 pieces of advice for someone in a small agency, and typically it's 1 or 2 people if you don't have a big team. So if you're the champion, good luck. But first, I would design your system around your current customer payment preference. So part of that is having surveys that clearly speak to where's your agency now, what are your customer payment preferences now. We tend to want to think about what we want to do, but you got to take care of your immediate customer needs. Second, fully understand your customer experience. When you put a new system in, what do you want the customer to do? What is their behavior? Do they have to walk to a TBM? Do they have to go online? Really understand how your customer is going to act with the system you would like to see. Third, while data is great, consider how much capacity you have in your agency to really use that data. You know, you'll get offers that we can do all this great stuff, but if you don't have the capacity to really dissect it, use it, you're going to spend a lot of your time keeping the data integrity and not really seeing the full use of that. So get an idea of really what you want to see. And finally, do not lock in for 10 to 15 years because technology is moving too fast. So that would be my 4 comments.
Thank you, Endya. Well, with that, I'm going to kind of kick things over to the audience questions. We did have one that came in that was just, I think, as a quick answer. It was directed to Michelle about what are you looking at for fees on the kind of Uber and transit app partnerships? Like, what cut of the revenue do they take?
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously, you know, when you negotiate those agreements, it's really, every agreement's going to be different, right? We have Masabi as our mobile app provider, and so Masabi has partnered with Uber and Masabi has partnered with Transit App. So they are actually in between us. We don't have a direct agreement with Uber. It's Masabi that brought these pieces to us. So it just rolls right into our normal fees with Masabi. Everything is passed directly through. With Transit App, it was very seamless and a lot simpler. I'll say that. It was the costs were none to start up. With Uber, there were no upfront costs with Uber. However, they do not share any information, any data. They keep everything very close to themselves. And so even us working through Masabi to try and get any information, Uber's not going to share it. And so I think that's something that as a transit agency, you know, we love to have that data. You just got to get over it that you're not going to get it. It's, you know, we have validators on all of our vehicles so we can see the scans, and so we can collect that end of the data. But as far as anything else, no, it's not going to be there, and Uber's not going to share it. But the fees are going to be negotiated depending on your contract. You know, I guess all I could say is and suggest would be to work with your mobile app provider to get the best contract, the best deal, the best fee structure. Everything is negotiable. And right now, you know, those Uber and Lyft and those other companies, they need that. They need that connection with those transit riders. So it was worth it for us.
Good. I'm glad to hear it was easy too. That's not something.
Yeah, it was very easy. The data is painful, but the rollout was easy.
Good. Good. Well, hey, welcome back, Allan. We're glad we only lost you for a minute there. So.
Yeah, a bit of a network connection.
Yeah. I think you were just wrapping up. I don't know if there's anything else you had to add at the end of that with your comments. But,
yeah, I'm actually not sure where it got cut off. I'll just take any additional questions that anyone may have.
Okay, fair enough. So we've got some questions in the chat window here, and I think one of the first ones, and I think it's a good question because we haven't really touched on it, but how are you handling paratransit? Have you delved into using electronic payments, and how have the customers responded to that? And I'll kind of throw that out to the audience. I don't know if somebody wants to volunteer if they've got some experiences.
So I can actually talk to that. We are in the process of transitioning our paratransit customers over right now, and we're slated to go live on November 1st with that. We decided to treat them exactly the same as our fixed route service. So we are putting validators on the paratransit vehicles. We will be issuing everybody a free hop card so that they can load it if they choose. And we're very positive that this is going to work great. We have a lot of excitement from that those riders. They were excited when we first initially put it out to fixed route, and they wanted to know right away, when are we moving over? When are we moving over? It's taken a little bit of time for us to do that, but we're definitely excited to do that. And I think we're going to have a pretty good adoption rate as we did on fixed route.
Yeah.
So I can also comment. Oh, I'm sorry, Alan.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
So here in Vegas, we've always had some options for our paratransit customers. We have the coupon books, which, you know, the little tear-out coupons that they hand the driver. However, more predominantly used in our system is what we call a ghost pass. And so it's a 46 ride pass or 22 ride pass, and it's every month the customer can purchase it on paratransit. And it goes into their account, and the driver can actually see that on the MDT as to whether or not they have to collect a cash fare or whether or not they have a monthly ride pass. And so within the trapeze scheduling software, it actually counts down those rides for those customers as they book and take rides through the system. So there's nothing that the customer has to physically hold on to, which is really nice for those customers that have those types of disabilities. We have a lot of customers that just can't physically hold on to anything, and so it's nice to be able to offer them a seamless boarding process. And the scheduling software, the trapeze scheduling software and the MDTs handle everything seamlessly. It's all electronic. And so it's worked out. We've had that for years now, and it has worked out wonderful.
That's great. That's good. And Alan, I think you had something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I would say for us, the biggest challenge was that our paratransit service is actually offered by two sets of resources. The first is our vehicles that we own, the TTC owns and manages, and we also have committed vehicles from two of the largest taxi companies within the city. And so those vehicles are committed to the paratransit service. And because of that, we were able to install equipment on those vehicles to be able to take payments. And the equipment is a mobile device, which allows, the reason we went with the mobile device is the payment device is to allow the driver, the operator of the vehicle, to be able to actually go over to where the customer is. For those customers that are not able to handle the card and or able to actually tap the card against a reader, the driver can provide that level of assistance. So that was fairly straightforward, and it very closely mirrors what we do on our fixed route part of our service. The largest challenge for paratransit for us was the other half of the service provided to transit customers is actually provided by regular taxis throughout the city. And that service is provided when we don't have capacity on sort of the fixed vehicles. That overflow in terms of capacity is handled by just regular taxis throughout the city. And obviously the challenge there was, you know, providing a taxi with a mobile device that may only be used once or twice a day becomes a logistics issue for us in terms of keeping track of that inventory. So we moved away from providing a hardware solution there, and we actually built an application specific for this requirement, something that could be installed on the equipment inside the actual taxi company's vehicle on another device, an Android-based application that could just be installed on something that was already existing in the taxi cab. And again, by doing that, it came with a mobile sort of antenna area or tap area, again, so that the taxi driver could provide additional assistance to the customer in terms of taking that card tap. So with that, we're able to, you know, satisfy parity, which is, you know, making sure that the services that we offer to customers on a fixed route, any customer riding the paratransit service, whether that be on a committed vehicle or a variable taxi, they get the same customer experience, same level of service, and same access to all the products that are available on the fixed route side.
That's great. That's really very innovative and interesting to hear. Okay, I just noticed there's a couple hands up, and I'm sorry if you've had your hands up for a while, but I'm multitasking as best I can. So I see there's Paul Rasmussen. You've had your hand up, I know, for a while. I'm going to go ahead and allow you to talk if you want to go ahead and ask your question of the panel.
Yeah, my question was for Beth. I think her bio or intro had mentioned something about an RFID sticker. I was looking at that a while back as a way to add the transit pass to the local college student IDs so that they didn't require an additional transit card, but at the same time, Currently, we just have them flash their student ID, but we would like to be able to have them tap that so that we can get the data and we can record that, and also be able to turn off the transit pass aspect of it remotely. Can you please talk about that, and who's your vendor for that?
Yeah, so this is actually my baby. I've been involved in the Hot Fast Pass project since the beginning, but this is, I took this over when we had some change of staff. So we had some unique challenges. First of all, we had our board agree to offer every student in our high schools and junior highs to ride for free on transit. So we needed something that we could provide them, and then we also had our colleges. So we moved forward with an RFID sticker. It acts exactly the same as a regular Hot Fast Pass card does. And you're right, we can turn it off and on, or the agency, the school can turn it off and on. If they lose it, they can turn it off and give them a new one. It was a little bit tough going to figure out who can do those stickers. It was a little bit of an uphill battle. Obviously, we're working with TriMet. We partnered with TriMet on this. So I worked with TriMet, and they had a vendor that was contracted that has already supplied our actual hot cards, and they're called AB Corp. If you want more information on that, I can probably give that to you offline, or you can call TriMet and ask them. It's been great. The students in the high schools and junior highs were probably our best test subjects for this, because we were afraid that they were going to break pretty easily, and they didn't. So, and you know, they're high school students, so their cards are in and out of their wallets, and you name it, they're probably doing it with it. So we've had some really good luck with it, and I wouldn't shy anybody away from going that direction if that's where you want to go.
Thank you.
Yep.
Are the stickers cost prohibitive, or per?
No, they're a little bit more than our cards were, but we chose to take that on because it was easier to give them the sticker for their student body card as opposed to a separate HOP card. So yeah, we decided to take that on as kind of almost a loss there, but they're getting free fare anyway. So we were just trying to provide them for that. And the colleges, on the other hand, our local community college, we're going to transition them. We're actually working on that right now. So hopefully we'll have some good information from them too.
Thanks.
Yeah, there's actually a related question in the chat that you kind of touch on here with like these institutional partners. You know, how do you deal with institutional partners? And as well, during this, the current COVID crisis, did you provide any refunds to the participating companies? You know, and how did that, what was your strategy there? Anybody can jump in on that. I guess nobody gave any refunds.
Well, we say no, so we didn't have any speaking refunds, so I have to pass it to
Yeah. No, here in Vegas we did. When we decided to do rear door boarding, we weren't able to collect fares anymore. We did. If anybody had a pass, that whether it was a paper pass because we still are on magnetic tickets, or if you purchased a pass on your mobile app and you weren't able to technically use it, then we were allowing a refund. However, we were prorating those refunds based on the time that was left on those passes. So they weren't getting full refunds all the time. It just depended on, you know, pass type and how long they had it for. When we opened back up our service and started front door boarding again, that stopped. And so we did about 2 months. Well, it was about 2 months worth of refunds, and it equated to approximately about $8,000. So it wasn't as bad as it could have been. I'll say that. Anytime you have to give a refund, it's always uncomfortable, especially when you're a revenue department. So that was tough to swallow. But you know, it was something that we felt we needed to do to support our customers. For our institutional programs that we have, just to kind of touch, you know, we're on magnetic tickets. And so we like to try and use our mobile app whenever we can. And so we have set up, working with Masabi, we have set up ways where we can offer electronic versions of a college semester pass or a college 30-day pass. And so the student simply puts in their eligibility criteria. We validate that against the college database. As long as they're an active student and it gets validated, then they can go ahead and purchase that pass on the mobile app. We've transferred that same scenario and we've pushed it into our local school district as well. So we're testing that with our local schools as well, and trying to get that to work, especially in our high school students who actually, you know, work in school and things of that nature. So, but refunds we had to do. It was painful.
Okay, thank you. There's another person with their hands raised here. It's Jay Mustafa. You should now be able to speak if you want to go ahead and ask your question of the panel.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for this invitation. My quick question for you, number one, what are some of the basic cleaning procedures that you guys set up to protect the customer and the employees during this COVID-19, especially with the touch points in general? What are some of the principle or measure that you guys applied to protect the customers and the employees?
Well, JPA, I'll speak to JPA. We followed all CDC guidelines in terms of, you know, lines at the ticket window. They had to be 6 feet apart. We put little feet on the cement to help customers. On our buses, we kind of put signs in the seats to encourage separation. In terms of money room operations, we required masks and, of course, gloves. At one point, sometimes gloves were optional, but now we officially require it just for their safety. Of course, it's always, now in our buildings, we take the temperature of employees that are coming in for all of our locations. Just some of those basic CDC guidelines we are following to the T. Cleaning on our buses, I think, is more of a maintenance question. So I'm not qualified to answer what's happening on the buses in terms of cleaning.
Okay.
And I would just add to that, in addition to the social distancing requirements, and that is one of the reasons why we stopped rear door boarding and we just create more space on board our vehicles. We also had limits that we had imposed in terms of the number of customers that could board a single vehicle. Again, just an additional way to keep customers apart. As of this week, actually within the city, the requirement to wear a mask in all indoor spaces is now mandatory. It has been mandatory on our transit network for since last week, and now it's mandatory on any indoor space within the city. So customers are encouraged to wear a mask at all times while taking transit. This is not something that is enforced. Customers are encouraged to do so, and we have had a number of programs where we actually hand out masks to customers just to encourage the use of masks throughout the network. From a maintenance perspective, all of the payment equipment is wiped down and cleaned. Specifically, our vehicles and everything inside of our vehicles is cleaned nightly. And in some of our stations, that cleaning process actually happens 2 or 3 times throughout the service day, depending on the level of volumes at a station. Obviously, the busier stations are cleaned more frequently than others, but at a minimum, all of the fare payment equipment across the entire ecosystem is cleaned and sanitized at least once per day.
Thank you, sir.
That's great. Okay, I'm going to jump back to some of the questions in the chat. There's a question here. Has anyone considered Apple Pay, Cash Pay, PayPal as alternative payment forms? And I'll direct that to Beth because I'm a little bit more familiar with that system. I know they do it, so maybe you can tell your experience and the others can chime in as well.
Yeah, so we do use Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, and Google Pay. People can pay with those using their credit card that they've stored on the app. Also, Apple Pay and Google Pay will accept the actual hop card load. So they can take a physical hop card and basically load it so it's now virtual. And that actually is a great option for people because that allows them to have all those capping rules. If they're just using their credit card on their one of those pay apps for Google, Apple, or Samsung, then they're only getting that day cap. They're not getting that monthly cap for it. So yeah, we do use all of those that are available to us, and they seem to work out very well. We have quite a few people that were very excited when we went to Apple Pay. That was our last kind of system that we pushed it out to, and that adopted really fast by a lot of the Apple I can't remember what they're called, their phones, so they're Apple iPhones. So yeah, it's a great alternative. We don't use the Cash app or a PayPal of any sort, but those other three certainly are used quite a bit.
And do others of you have similar experiences or plans to accept those?
So I'll jump in. So currently the app that we do have, it allows customers to use these electronic wallets or electronic payment methods with their phone to actually load value onto the Presto card. We can't yet use the app or any of these third-party payment solutions to actually pay for fares. But what you can do with the app is actually load value with your phone onto your Presto card, and then you use the Presto card to actually take payments. With open payments, it'll provide that ability to basically use these other third-party payment sources to actually pay for a transit fare. And in those cases, there'll be no need for the actual app itself. Albeit we're considering with the application that we currently have to extend it to essentially eliminate the need for a physical Presto card. So there'll be an electronic card that's basically enabled or provisioned onto the smartphone device, and then there won't be a need for a Presto card itself, which will also be an additional convenience for customers.
Right. Okay. There's a couple of questions left, and I see that Pete Rasmussen, you have your hand up again. You're already able to speak if you want to just take yourself off mute and ask the panelist your question.
Yeah, okay, my next question was about university passes. In a lot of the programs, the student pays as part of their registration fee, but then after that, they just ride for free by showing their student pass. With a lot of the mobile phone payment systems, it's a revenue sharing model where they collect a percentage of the fare collected. But if the fare collected is zero in this case, have any of you worked that out with your vendors so that you can use that free fare model with their systems?
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and speak to that. With our college passes that we have on our mobile app, we have 3 different colleges here in the Las Vegas area. And all 3 of them, you know, some of these students, they'll have scholarships, which the funds will be included in that scholarship. They get other grants and other awards that are to be used for that entire tuition and also transportation costs for the college. So we have had a need, and we are currently able to use our mobile app as a partner portal, is what it's called. So the university has the ability to go ahead and put those funds on the student's account. They're able to log into the back office for our mobile app and issue those passes, whether it be a semester or a 30-day pass to those students that are entitled. And then we are able to generate a monthly invoice based on all those passes that they've issued, send that to the university, and recover our funds in that way. So for those types of programs, that's how we've worked it with the universities. We primarily, though, rely on the student to verify their eligibility, and then it's up to the student to buy their pass. So if the student's the one that is awarded the funds, then they can purchase the pass themselves. But if it's something that the college is holding on to, or it's a program that the college offers, the college has the ability to issue that pass to the student, and then we invoice them.
Okay. It sounds like you have a different model with your universities than we do. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Because we don't have a dedicated transportation route, we don't have dedicated service specifically to those college campuses.
Okay.
We are not on a revenue share program or anything of that nature.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for your question, Pete. We're starting to get close to our end time, so I'm going to ask a question. I think everybody can answer this, so I'm just going to throw it out. You can take turns, but just to talk a little bit about your marketing campaign and what you did to, in particular, how you got people to adopt mobile apps or maybe a Farecard, or Allan, you've got a lot of changes going on, and you've got a new system coming out. But what are you doing for marketing? So I'll throw that out to the group, and maybe you can just each answer from your perspective.
I'll jump in first. JPA had its first mobile app program back in 2014, and in 2018 we rolled out with the validator. So we had two promotional programs. One was just kind of face-to-face with customers. Hey, this is an app, this is how you use it. We did a lot of how to download an app type marketing. Our second wave, we realized if folks are not acclimated or accustomed to using apps, it's better to focus on the folks who needed that information to know that we do have an app. So when we put in validators, it was sort of a self-promotion, and it encouraged folks to be inquisitive about, well, what is this? How does it work? I see people scanning and getting on the buses. So if you have a validator on your vehicle, it attracts customers when they see other customers doing it. So we didn't do as much promotion as we did to initially promote the app, but the second part where they actually saw the validator, it kind of promoted itself. So I don't know if that helps out any.
No, that's good.
Just to add on to that, we've had a number of marketing campaigns to promote the adoption onto the system. I guess as a general strategy, some of the foundations of that campaign include we've given away a large number of free cards to encourage customers to adopt to the system, and to also ensure that access to the system that's not seen as a barrier. So providing free cards was actually a great way to sort of catalyze that movement and for customers onto the system. We've also tried to be very strategic with the market segments that we're trying to move over, just so that we're not clobbering the communication space with messages that may be conflicting or just overwhelming in some cases. So for us, just as a general strategy, we started with a focus on those customers that are heavily subway-based customers. That is, most of their transit journeys are in the subway, and the subway is the backbone for our network. So focused on getting those customers over first. And again, we had a number of waves of marketing and communication and different strategies, including meeting customers at stations to answer any specific questions that they may have. We then moved to the surface network, and then there were different pockets within the city that we approached, again, in a phased way to get customers over. And then the last wave was looking at paratransit and bringing over that market segment as well onto the Presto network. So again, it was doing this in a phased and a managed way so that we're not overwhelming in terms of the messaging that we're giving the customers. The last piece I would also say is that in all cases, and again, this is part of the overall strategy, we did not remove a conventional legacy product until we saw that the adoption of those customers were sufficient enough. We'd actually gotten to a critical mass, And then we went in terms of adoption of Presto for those customers. And then we took away those legacy products. And again, that was meant to ease customers into the system and not present any constraints that they may have. And certainly there's a tremendous amount of outreach and unique channels that we set up to be able to answer any individual and specific questions that customers may have had.
Really quick, I'll just kind of add on to that. You know, your marketing strategy, especially for a mobile app, or I think any type of FARE initiative that you're doing, it's really about boots on the ground, being in touch with your customer. We spent a lot of time before we rolled out our mobile app, being in our transit centers, being at key locations, at key stops where we knew that they were the highest boarding. And really just boots on the ground. You know, everybody wore T-shirts. I mean, we went down to the very basic of marketing levels. We changed our magnetic ticket stock. We changed the artwork on the front of that to promote the mobile pass, the mobile app. So even if you did put cash into a fare box and got a pass out, the front of that pass was next time use our ridership mobile app. So, you know, wrapping vehicles, marketing, putting up things on your stops, just, you know, really, we really just saturated the entire system with our ridership app.
That's great, thanks. And Beth, you're the last. I don't know if you have anything else you want to add or if it's been covered, but give you a chance.
I think that it's, I can't say anything different than what they just said about marketing. I think it's getting out there early and letting people know it's coming, and then boots on the street. And we did everything that Allan just mentioned as well. And I think it's just that, like I mentioned earlier, you just need to do everything that you can think of, because people get their information in different ways. And you can't just think you're going to do it one way and everybody's going to get it. So, you know, social media and your website and talking and putting postings on the bus, you name it, just do it. If you can think of it, then somebody else is thinking of it too. So get it out there.
Okay, well, I'm gonna just quickly share my screen, I think. See if I can do this again. Oh, well, I'm not sure if you're seeing the presentation or you're seeing the actual slide, but anyway, you get the idea. I won't mess with it now. We're running out of time, and I want to be respectful that we end on time. But I really want to thank everyone. You know, I want to thank the audience for the questions. The speakers, you've been great. Each of you, I think, you know, came with a different perspective, added a lot. And as a moderator, you're a great group to work with. I've done this a couple of times, and you were some of the easiest people I've had to work with. I came into this late, and you were super cooperative and flexible and really just on the ball. So I put up my contact information. You can reach out to me as well. Everyone, all the panelists have their contact you know, information, I think was in their bios. This recording is going to be sent out. It'll come from Global Mass Transit. They were the organizers, and they put on this event. We're just the sponsor and acting as the moderator. And then finally, you know, if you want to continue the discussion, you know, we're interested at INIT, learning more what the challenges are. You know, we're talking about here taking some of those challenges, gathering up some best practices, and publishing a newsletter or some sort of white paper in the next like 60 to 90 days to help with, you know, what's working, what's not working, what are those lessons learned and best practices we can share. So feel free to reach out to us. Our general email address and website's there on the screen as well. So with that, I want to thank everybody, especially this group of speakers. You're great. Thank you for your time, and thank you for everyone's time and attention on the call. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.